Hello, Team Basecamp. Hey, Coach Tim here with a quick review of today's Basecamp Power Tempo Ride. We're going to take a look at Eloy's workout. Um, Great job turning things green, doing good stuff. We see this as green workout with the check mark. We check in a green again. I always do a quick review of the factors. So TSS, he was supposed to get 73. He got 72. Wow, considering we did this in incline, good control. But this workout was an IF intensity factor of 0.77. Remember, 1.0 is as hard as you could go. So when we're doing workouts in that 0.7, mid 0.7 range, that's a pretty fair amount. That's a moderate. Let's start using that word moderate because it's the training range we're in when we think about tempo. Moderately hard, moderately fatiguing, right? So when I see that 0.77 and he executed 0.76, so pretty much right on, this was a moderate hard workout. Not super hard, not high intensity, not easy either, moderate. So I can quickly use these metrics to get a quick feel. Clicking into analyze, we visually see in the workout, he executed just fine. Now, I quickly go and I look at a couple of other metrics. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through my process as we haven't done a full review because last week was rest, right? So I'm looking at overall, to me, I look at IF first, but I usually do that from the early tile. I'm looking at EF next. How aerobically efficient he was. Now, typically when I'm doing this with my one-on-one athletes, I kind of know their range and number. Um, I track it in WKO5. I look at it in other ways, but I also just kind of know it. I only coach 6 one-on-one athletes. I know where they're at. I want to see where that number is. So his 1.26 is individual to him. You can't compare it to yours. But what I often do, and I do this in my notes, I keep track of tempo workouts. What is the EF for the athlete? So, like, you could go back and look at the couple of other tempo workouts that we have done. We've done a couple. What was your EF in those tempo workouts? I'm always looking at that EF comparatively. Now, remember, EF is a heart rate driven metric, so it is subject to certain variables, one of which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Now, once I've done my overall view of things, I'm drilling into the workout. Now, today's workout, we had a lot of discussion about cycle 2. We did so last night in the cycle 2 preview about we're introducing this idea. We're doing intensive aerobic work in cycle 2. We're looking to continue to improve mitochondrial function, to improve your muscle glycogen storage, to improve your plasma volume by simply evolving from a more extensive aerobic effort in cycle 1, a lot of zone 2, into more intensive aerobic in cycle 2, more aerobic power in tempo, right? We're just getting a little harder. Now, tempo, one thing we've said is still aerobic work, meaning that your aerobic energy pathways are the dominant pathway for energy when you look at the workout. So we're still improving aerobic performance. Tempo allows us to add an element of muscular endurance. So remember, we need to blend all those systems together, interplay. So we get a little better muscular endurance, fatigue resistance out of tempo also. So we're moving in, we're doing tempo, here's what we're doing. Now, we're also adding an element of lactate management. And basically, remember what our aerobic engine, we want to get more fuel and oxygen in, and we want to get byproduct out. If we can improve, if we get more and more fuel and oxygen in, and we can get the byproducts out, we can make a lot more horsepower, just like your car engine. Lactate is one of those byproducts. Now, because we call it, because it is a byproduct, we tend to associate that with negative. Some of the lactate is negative, and we'll learn more about this to cycle, but lactate's actually an energy source, or it can be, or it's a type of energy source. It also creates some problems when we don't get rid of it. So the term we use for now, and we'll start drilling into the section, is lactate management. And that's this idea that we shuttle some lactate, we tolerate some, we buffer some. There's a lot of terms when we get to lactate, and we're going to slowly start breaking them down. Now, when you look at today's tempo work, we did 2 times 17 But the first 2 minutes were hard start. And basically, those are in your threshold kind of range. And what we're doing, we're utilizing those 2 minutes to bring up the goal, the objective here. And I'm going to show you, as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you just in the work. Oh, I was wondering if it would let me do that. No, I have to at least show something to show the workout. Oh, look at that. It won't let me bring the workout. There it is. Okay, so the reason we do that in those 2 minutes is we want to increase the stimuli. We want to get you burning more and more energy anaerobically. You're right around that threshold, right? So your anaerobic energy, what you're using carbs as fuel is coming up. The byproduct of using carbs as fuel is lactate. Very oversimplified, but accurate. So as you're burning more carbs as fuel, you're going more anaerobic, that you're producing more lactate. So we use those 2 minutes to put a higher level of lactate in the system. We also make you more acidic or create acidosis, but we're really focusing on the lactate here. Then, instead of just resting after, we go right to tempo mode and we force your body to deal with that lactate at load or under load or at effort. See, one of the things a lot of cyclists do, and they literally teach their body a bad physiological habit, you go on a lot of group rides outside and you charge up a hill, 400 or 500 watts up the hill. You get to the top and you stop pedaling and you coast down the other side and you recover okay coasting down the other side. You're literally training your body that time off is always going to come, and it's only going to learn to recover under very low loads. What we're teaching your body here is recovery under training load. How do you manage that lactate, right? How are you dealing with the lactate issues that are being created while you're still creating power? So one of the measurements we can look at is heart rate. Now I'm going to show heart rate. And what we see here for his workout, right? Look at the hard 2 minutes. His heart rate comes up. The power shoots right up. He's in incline mode, so he's trying to find his power. Heart rate comes up much slower. This is VO2 kinetics. It takes your heart rate time to respond. But actually, once he drops off power, the heart rate stays high a little longer. You can see it goes beyond, right, that high point. Now, what we're looking at, I'm going to simply drag, I'm going to hold over to when he dropped power right there. And I'm going to visually look to see how long it took him before his heart rate really dropped down to his tempo-ish range. And don't be exact here. There's no perfect. You see, I'm picking that little low valley. That might even be a little too low because he had this little spike right here, right? He's got this little spike. So maybe it's something in between that. Just generalize. You'll notice once I drag that, it forms selection here. See it here? I'm going to click add, and I'm going to call that HRRT, heart rate recovery in tempo, right? Heart rate recovery in tempo. I'm going to enter. It asks me if I want to apply. Now I have an interval. I can see remember, I'm just eyeballing. I'm not making it, don't make heart rate exact science. It took him about 3 minutes. If I choose that interval, it took about 3 minutes there for him to recover before his heart rate. I'm sorry, I don't know what my Training Peaks is doing in the background here. Let me just go back to power, hide all the others, go back to heart rate. It took him about 3 minutes to recover. Now here, I can it won't let me even grab correctly, so you're going to have to wing this. He kind of recovered here. His second one was a little bit better. So when I look at what that is, I can add that selection. I'm going to call that HRRT number 2. I'm going to enter, apply, and look at once jump back to that. Okay. I'm going to hide the others. Sorry about the technical issues here. I don't know what Training Peaks is doing. Maybe they're struggling a little bit today. So here's the second HRT. That one took 2 minutes. So that gives me, so the part of the reason the heart rate stays high is you've built lactate, your body's working to deal with it. It's under greater strain, so your heart rate stays slightly elevated. Measuring when the heart rate drops to a kind of normal tempo, that's a heart rate return measurement. When you're pretty fit and dealing with lactate well, that should take around a minute. Now, I hate saying this to this audience sometimes because sometimes you take things overly precise. You could be 55 seconds, you could be 80 seconds, but around a minute, right? And the key thing is as we work through this in cycle two, because you'll see a lot of these, we begin to kind of shorten that time. It's not an overly precise measurement, but it is one of the responses we're looking for in general. Because what it does give us an indicator of is that your body is improving. And we're going to talk about what that means: shuttling, buffering, all the things that we do with lactate. It's improving its lactate management under load. And that's going to be a key thing we're going to look for. So sorry this video went a little long. I was really struggling with Training Peaks in the background. But please feel free to ask questions below. And just know we're going to talk more about this lactate management and getting into this numbers. Just take a look at yours. How long? Make your little laps like I just showed you to, and just get a feeling. How long did it take you to recover? Now, in closing, here's a final caveat. In doing these efforts, you might have found your heart rate was higher than normal. We discussed that in this a little bit in the 10 o'clock workout. You've rested. When you're rested, right, your heart, and this is totally oversimplified, your heart is well rested. It's not ready to exercise yet. It needs a couple of days to get up and going. The reality is it's gotten less. Oh, I didn't want to go there. It's not ready to exercise yet. You're well rested. Your heart is rested. So it's hyper responsive. That's a simpler way to put it. I'll go deeper in this in week 1 and 2. Because you've rested and your heart is rested, when you add stimuli, it's not used to that stimuli, so it hyper responds. It beats a little faster than normal. This is also why we're doing a little extra work on Thursday for your Saturday test, because we started our rest day a week early. If we didn't do something hard here, we would probably be overly fresh for your test. Your heart rate would be hyper responsive, and that high heart rate would be a barrier from you having, a quality test, quality number. Wow, this is going to generate a lot of questions. Sorry about the poorly made video, but ask them below. Thanks.